So The Last Jedi is out, and if you scour the interwebs, you'll find all manner of videos from all manner of people who liked it, who don't like it. You'll see Mauler's 5 hours of critique of the movie and all of the things that he pulls apart. And many of the criticisms are about how the movie is made and the things that the script has missing and the stupid things that happen and the things that go against Star Wars lore and the poor editing and the poor music choices, and it goes on and on and on. And the defenders of the movie will claim that haters are going to hate and that the only reason people don't like it or fall in the categories of it didn't do what they expected or didn't meet their expectations or did things they didn't like. They don't ever deal with the real criticisms of the movie. They don't ever deal with how poorly it's put together, the mythos, all those things. Because if they did, they would understand that the movie is horrible. Well, and then along comes me. So if you go back to my Force Awakens video that I did the day I saw the movie, without seeing a single dissenting voice, everything said how great that movie was. Is that I, in my stunned disbelief, made my video. It started me on a path of discovery. And after uploading, I came across more and more videos of people who didn't like it. And I kept expressing my disbelief, my displeasure about how poorly Jar Jar Abrams had made a movie and all of the mystery box nonsense that he kept in. But lovers of the movie told me, but wait, Episode 8 will explain more things. It's the first movie of a trilogy. We can't have all the answers in the first chapter. Some of it has to be in the second and third chapters. But the more I explored what Jar Jar Abrams and Kathleen Candace Kennedy wanted to do for this new trilogy, and as we saw Rogue One, and as we had the Solo movie announced, and perhaps the Kenobi movie announced, and then Rian Johnson got a trilogy before the movie The Last Jedi was out, and blah, 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 it became apparent to me that none of these things were going to be answered ever in any movie. So I started making comments and leaving comments. Nope, we're not going to get answers to this. We're not going to get answers to that. In fact, I firmly believed that all of the fan theories that people came up with, who is Rey and who is Snoke and Kylo Ren and how did he turn and all blah, the Knights of Ren, where are they? And the scores upon scores of videos that went through everything. She's a granddaughter of Kenobi. She's the daughter of Jyn Erso. She's a Luke clone made by the Emperor. She's a forbidden love between Luke and Leia. And who is Snoke? He's Plagueis. He's Sidious. He's this. He's that. He's all those. It became obvious to me that not a single one of those could ever be allowed to be the truth. That they weren't going to write another script that, even if there was a fan theory out there, although apparently there was a fan theory about The Last Jedi, and it came to be. So I started leaving comments that no, we're not going to get answers. My expectations is that The Last Jedi was going to go further down the rabbit hole. That fans were going to become more and more disillusioned. And I probably should have made a video then, but by the time that I didn't see Rogue One in theaters. I saw it many, many months later. Laughed so hard through that it was so cringeworthy. Because see, once I got out of my 3-month depression after The Force Awakens, I didn't care for any new Star Wars movie of any kind. I still cared for the old ones, but I didn't care for the new ones. I sort of looked at the prequels again with a little bit more of an open eye, but I'm still can't bring myself to watch them. So my expectations were that The Last Jedi was going to be a horrible film, just like this one. It was going to go further and further down. It was going to crap on the fans more and more. And you know what? My expectations were not only met, my expectations were exceeded. So those of you who like this movie for whatever reason, I don't really care. You're welcome to your own opinion. Don't tell me that I don't like this movie because it didn't meet my expectations. I don't like this movie because it's the second of a series that I don't like. I don't like the direction. I don't like the politics. I don't like the SJW nonsense. And so this movie exceeded my expectations. It went down further down the rabbit hole than I could ever imagine. Poured 4 subplots together. It was a jumbled mess. I never thought for certain that Disney would have such poor editing on any movie, let alone a Star Wars movie. And Rian Johnson and his lack of talent doesn't matter. It's so nuanced, and the nuance is ridiculous. Go read some real nuanced literature and see some film noir. You'll see what Hollywood used to produce and the nuances of it. This is just faux intellectualism. It's not truly deep. It just pretends to be. And so my expectations were so overwhelmingly exceeded that it made me giggle to watch the fans turn on one another. Made me sad in a way, but it was great entertainment. I sat back and watched the people who don't like this movie tear it apart and go through every unbelievable detail of why they didn't like it. And I listened and watched and read as the people who liked the movie and why they liked the movie. Interestingly enough, many of the things that people like about the movie has nothing to do with Star Wars anymore. It has something to do with personal belief. It has something to do with where they think the world should go. And they read into it. When you have to have your own headcanon to make sense of the entire movie or to put it into, hey, this is the second chapter of a 3-part story, that ought to tell you something. You know, back in the day in 1977 when Star Wars came out, we had all kinds of ideas of whether it was going to be a sequel. I had classmates of mine in Seymour, Tennessee, who said there has to be a sequel. There were girls who said there's going to be a sequel because Princess Leia isn't married. The bad guy's not dead. And we did get a sequel eventually, although the movie was written somewhat as a one-off, and it depends on which side of the legend you want to believe as to whether Lucas actually planned something or didn't plan. I do believe that the story of him having a bigger movie idea than what could be put into that slightly less than 2-hour runtime is what we got somewhat in The Empire Strikes Back and a lot of it in Jedi. This is part of why we have another Death Star. We have a big Ewok adventures and all that other stuff. Much bigger battle. He wanted to do a larger battle, but apparently he had a script that was like 4 hours that he kind of split it up. And the mythos around what George did or did not plan is, that's a topic for another discussion. But it is interesting that we believed that there would be a sequel of some sort. And when it came out as The Empire Strikes Back and not Star Wars 2 like every other sequel, it was quite mesmerizing. Now, in 1980, when I did see Empire Strikes Back, I kind of liked it, kind of didn't. Now, I do not remember. Now, granted, I was only 12 years old, but I do not remember the fans recoiling in horror and shock like people want to believe that the defenders of The Last Jedi will say that back in the day, that movie was hated. You know what? The prequels were liked back in the day. It took years for the prequels to be hated. And once the fans turned on it, it got pretty vicious, and I would not be surprised if Disney's minions were out poking the flames. I was disappointed with The Phantom Menace and did not see the rest of them in theaters, but I did see them eventually. And yes, I think they could have been much better had George had the same creative team he had back on the original ones, but that's neither here nor there. So to all of you who liked the Star Wars The Last Jedi, you can proudly say that I will proudly say as someone who does not like this movie, I've seen enough of it, bits and pieces, to know that I have no intention to ever see any of it. It exceeded my expectations. I had no idea where they were going to take the story. I did not have my own head canon. I didn't even have my own theories of who all these characters were and what was going to happen. So you can take that and you can shove it. Because the movie's horrible. In every sense of the word, by how you judge a good movie, how it's put together. The critics are either scared out of their boots or they're bought off. It doesn't matter which. This is why you have such a big distribution of likes to dislikes. Why there's such a big difference between the audience score, which continues to go down, and the professional score. So there you have it. You can take your theories about why people hate this movie, and you can take your expectation nonsense and you can shove it where the sun don't shine, because as I am someone who doesn't like this movie at all, yet it exceeded my expectations. So there. How about that for a contrarian opinion? How about that for a twist of phrase? The Last Jedi exceeded my expectations in every way, shape, and form. I never knew they could make such a horrible movie and go in such horrible directions. So now my expectations for episode 9, whatever it's going to be called, are so low, pun intended, that I don't even know if I can even fathom when it comes out. And I do hope that this hatred for The Last Jedi continues in episode 9, has one of the lowest openings of any episodic Star Wars movie ever, especially adjusted for inflation. And perhaps at some point Disney gets the idea that they can't run this into the ground as well as they did Honey, I Shrunk the Kids series. But they'll try. They did it to Toy Story. They did it to Santa Claus. Heck, they're even doing it to Mary Poppins. So as I sign off and say goodbye, Internet denizens, my expectations were exceeded.